the things I really enjoy making is snowflakes. Sometimes I do just really decorative ones like this. But the ones that I enjoy most are ones that incorporate pictures into them. Now this one, for anyone who doesn't know, this one is from the video game Overwatch. And what I've done is I've incorporated the symbol of the game itself and then symbols of different characters who are in the game throughout. So I also do this for ones with movies. This one is from Frozen. You can see I've got Anna and Elsa with her braid and Anna's braids, and the crown worked into this really cool design. Here's one from Guardians of the Galaxy. Groot, Star-Lord, Rocket. So I really love making these kinds of snowflakes, but people always ask me how I made them. Well, I've tried to explain it before, but I think this time I'm just going to make a video and walk you through the entire process and talk about the things that I'm thinking about as I design the snowflake. So snowflakes have 6 points, but with careful placement you can put an additional 6 points in there, counterpoints, and so it's really got 12 different points. What we have to think about is the symmetry of a snowflake. So a snowflake is symmetrical, meaning that one side is the mirror image of the other side. And you know, if you've ever made snowflakes, and we'll go over the specifics here, but you know, I'm not cutting this out like this, it's all folded up into a little triangle. But when I'm designing it, what I'm thinking of, you can see here as I zoom in the fold lines right here and here. The triangle that I cut out looked like that. That's all it was. So as I'm designing it, what I've got in mind is when this thing folds across this line, what it's going to look like. When it folds across this line, what it's going to look like. So you can see I've done half of a helmet here. When it folds over that line, we get that. Here we've got a upside down skull face mask, and we get the other side like that. So I'm thinking about the symmetry along the two fold lines, this fold line and this fold line. So I have to imagine what the picture is going to look like once its mirror images across the line. Another symmetry that happens is left-right symmetry and top-bottom symmetry. So there's a fold line right there. So basically this is a mirror image of this. So one of the things that we want to think about with the top-bottom symmetry is that some things are straight up when we look at the top of the snowflake, like this helmet right here is straight up as we're looking at it here. So is this symbol. It's an arrow with angel wings coming off of it. So these are all straight up right here. So is this logo. But this thing is upside down here. And by being upside down here, that means that when we look at the bottom, it's now right side up at the bottom. So same with this little skull symbol here. It's right side up now, but up here it's upside down. So these that's some of the things that we want to think about as we're designing this, and I'll show you what that means as we go ahead and design something. To make intricate snowflakes, you need a few tools. The first thing is an X-Acto knife. This is just a basic X-Acto knife. I like to use number 11 hobby blades. You're going to need several sharp blades because you may use more than one blade for a snowflake. Be safe. You need some scissors. They don't have to be giant scissors like this, but these are the scissors that I have. A cutting board. This is just a piece of cardboard, but you can use a regular cutting mat, something that you can safely cut into so you don't scratch up your table like this. That's a no-no. And then you need paper. Now, you can use any kind of paper that you want. This is regular, just like copy paper. But this is not my favorite to use because it is actually a little too thick. When you once you fold it all the way, then it's pretty thick and beefy, and it's hard to cut into. So my favorite paper to use is vellum. This right here, drafting vellum. I use a bigger size, 11 by 17 instead of 8.5 by 11 or A4 because, well, you can make bigger snowflakes. The reason why I like this paper is because it's still white, but it's very thin compared to copy paper. And it's very easy to cut through with an X-Acto knife. Another kind of paper you can use is tracing paper. This is super, super thin and delicate. You have to be very careful when using it. The main problem is that it's not very white. A lot of colors, a lot of things shine through it. But if you want, you can be very creative and layer snowflakes. So you make a snowflake out of this and put this over top of it, and you'll get some cool translucence that happens. So you can do those kinds of things. Another thing you need is a straight edge, preferably one with a metal edge if it's not metal altogether. This thing is a metal ruler. I've got my 11 by 17 inch piece of parchment here. It doesn't matter which kind of paper you use. This is just my preferred paper. Also, you're gonna go through the same process no matter what size paper you start with. But I'll show you how we do that. The first thing we need to do is get this rectangle into a square. So the first step is to pick a corner, and you're going to fold diagonally so that this edge touches that edge. This one to that one, like this. And it's important to be as exact as you can on this. No sloppy folds. No matter how hard you try, though, I'll tell you, you're going to end up with sloppy edges. But you want to try your best to not have sloppy edges. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, first though, we've got this, and you can go ahead and crease that nicely. And then this gives us an edge right here that we're gonna cut along. So I'm gonna put my cutting board underneath. I'm gonna use my metal straight edge and set it right there on that edge. Then I'm gonna use my X-Acto knife with a very fresh, sharp blade and just cut right down there. Okay, so now we open it up, it's a square, right? But we're not gonna open it up. We're gonna keep it a triangle. So now that we have our big triangle, we're gonna fold this into a smaller triangle by folding right along here. So we're just gonna take this corner and fold it up to that corner. Again, you wanna be as perfect as you can. And crease it as much as you can. The flatter you can get your paper, the better everything's going to turn out. So now we have this little triangle. We're going to put it here with the corner facing us. Now, what we need to do is next fold this into thirds with the point down there. So you can guess like this. This is what I do sometimes. You kind of fold it over like this. Make sure both sides go down to the point right here where my thumb is. Make sure you're right at the point. You line up this edge with this fold, and then you can crease it. Now that's not super exact. If you want to be more exact, you can get a protractor out, and the measurement we're looking for is 30 degrees. So if we line this up and we find 30 degrees, we can do a little mark right there. And then 30 degrees from this side is right here. And then you're going to fold from this corner through each point. Actually, what you can do is fold this edge till it touches that point, like that. And then do the same thing across here. Another thing that you can do if you're going to do a lot, this is a piece of cardboard that once I've gotten the triangle correct, I copied it down onto a piece of cardboard and I can just lay it down like this so that it's touching one edge and the point, and that tells you where your crease is going to be. So that's another way to do it, but we'll go ahead and do this. Now, another thing to consider is a lot of times you'll see that you can just fold it over like that, but what happens is because of the thickness of the paper, this edge doesn't actually make it all the way over. So what you can do is actually flip it over and fold it backwards. And you fold so that this edge touches that edge all the way down to the point. You want to make sure all of your edges and your folds are lined up as good as possible. If you were to fold it this way, you see that you've got a flat line right here, and you're going to want to cut along that line. When you fold it like I did in the Z, you can't see that as well. With the vellum you can see through it. So we're going to cut from this corner to this corner straight. So you get your scissors and you can cut straight across. Okay, so now if we were to unfold this, we basically have a round circle. Okay, but don't unfold it. Keep it folded like this. So this is what we're going to cut our snowflake out of. But we're not ready to cut yet. Now we need to make a plan, okay? So the first thing that I do when I'm creating a plan is I think about the theme that I want. You know, is it characters from a movie or from a book or something like that? Today, since it's almost the holidays being Halloween, we're going to do a Halloween snowflake. So the first thing I want to do is think about all of the different shapes that I can associate with Halloween. First thing is, how about a jack-o'-lantern, okay? So I want to kind of sketch an idea for a jack-o'-lantern, but I want to remember to try to keep it symmetrical along one axis. It could be top to bottom or it could be side to side. Jack-o'-lantern makes a lot of sense to be side to side. So right now we're just thinking of basic designs. We'll work out exactly how to work them into the snowflake in a future step. Now, of course, there's always my favorite skulls. So let's think of a simplified skull. And there's teeth, so maybe something like that. Let's see, we've got ghost. How about a bat? Things. Ooh, a spider. Let's see. I like creepy spiders, so let's. How about a tombstone? What else? How about a cat? Ooh, a cauldron. Okay. I think those are some good ideas. I think we can take those and incorporate them into a design. So now what I'm going to do is come back to a clean sheet of paper, and I'll take my triangle that I've already folded and I'm just going to trace it on here. So okay, so there's my triangle. Now I'm also going to line this up and trace another triangle right beside it. So we're going to design in this middle one, but these are the two edges where the folds are happening, so I know my symmetry needs to happen across this edge and this edge. So this will help me just kind of visualize that better. Let's decide on what our primary point is going to be. Like when you count the points and you say that's a 6-pointed snowflake, this is the points that you would be counting. What if we start with a skull?
So easily open up your eyes and see there's more to our story. Baby, open up to me, don't give up so easily. Open up your eyes and see there's more to our story. Don't leave me hanging.
So one thing we can do is we can look for big areas of lots of white space, like the top of the skull here, and we can use that to put other shapes in the negative space. So I think, what if we put a little coffin? Just like that. And if you look at it, that looks like a coffin. It would be cut out. Okay, one thing to look at is the jack-o'-lantern that I put here. You'll see that I put it here in the middle. I made sure that it touches both sides. That means that the whole jack-o'-lantern will be mirrored on the other side. So because the whole jack-o'-lantern is going to be mirrored, I didn't have to make it symmetrical. So I deliberately made it asymmetrical. So that's what it's going to look like on one side, and then the mirror side will look like this. In a similar way, the cat is symmetrical along this line, and it stretches all the way over to this side. But because it stretches from one side to the other, it'll be symmetrical along here, and then here we'll have another cat. And so we're able to have asymmetry. Okay, with our design sketched out here, we want to make sure that there is connection between all of the designs. You can see here in these areas, I've already drawn that in. We want to make sure that there's no positive space floating in the negative space. So I'm just going to quickly color in negative space things that are in the middle. Okay, so it'll look like that in one direction, this in another. We only care about this triangle. So now we're going to transfer this drawing over onto our actual snowflake. Now you can do this a lot of ways. You can use transfer methods like carbon paper. Okay, the way that I'm going to do this is I'm just going to draw it again. I had an art teacher who used to tell me, if you drew it once, you can draw it again. So I've drawn it once, now I'm going to draw it again.
Baby, open up to me, don't give up so easily. Open up your eyes and see there's more to our story. Don't leave me hanging. Don't leave me hanging on.
All right, now that we've got the picture drawn on our actual snowflake, the only thing left to do is cut it out, and I'm going to probably cut the whole thing out using my X-Acto knife. You'll notice as I'm cutting, when I come into corner areas, that I will cut this way. I try to always cut away from the corner. So I don't cut up to the corner this way, or I do as far as I can, but then I stop. Now the reason for that is if you look at the blade is an angle, right? So if you imagine these are all the layers of paper, and we can even use the actual blade, as I cut into it like this, I've cut all the way through at this point, but not all the way through at those points. So if I want my cut to be straight down here, and I push my blade straight down, it will cut with the tip, and then I can pull back. But if I'm doing it this way, where I need to stop there, and I pull back, if I stop here, where the top layer is being cut, then the bottom layer is far from being cut. And in order to get the bottom layer, I have to cut all the way here, and now I've got cuts way far past where I wanted to on the top. So I always pull away from the corners when I'm cutting. Another thing you'll notice is that I'm not trying to cut through all 12 layers at once. I'm just cutting maybe 1 or 2 pieces of paper each time, and so I'll go over the same cut multiple times, each time just letting the knife cut where it needs to. If you push down too hard and try to do it all at once, you'll hit a spot that will kind of snag, and then all of a sudden it will let go, and you slip like that, and you end up cutting way further than you wanted to. So you just do nice and gently, just through the top layer each time, and each time you cut on that same line, you're cutting a little bit further. I'm gonna start by cutting out anything that is floating. So I'll cut out these eyes and the mouth, this eye, these things. All of these little things that are floating are a lot easier to cut out while the whole thing is still connected. Once we start cutting out some of these outer shapes, these shapes will only be held together by little tiny pieces, and they'll want to move around. So it's best to cut out the tiny things first, and then, so cut out the inner things first, and then move to the outer things.
Don't give up so easily. Open up your eyes and see there's more to our story. Baby, open up to me. Don't give up so easily. Open up your eyes and see there's more to our story. Don't leave me. Hey.
I missed a spot, so I got to get that out. Now you may have noticed that I had to replace the blade halfway through. These sharp tips break off, and paper makes the blade dull so fast. Okay, there it is, all done. Let's see what it looks like when we unfold it. Now I'll often flatten it out, and sometimes I'll, set a book or something on it to flatten it for a long time, but I'm just gonna press it between these two pieces of board. So here's our Halloween snowflake. As we look at it, we've got a skull with a coffin in it. We've got bat, black widow, jack-o'-lanterns all around, and a Halloween cat. Now, I kind of like the way this looks. This cat actually has two tails. If you look at each cat, it's got one tail going off this way and one tail going off that way. At this point, if I wanted to, I could come through and cut off one tail on one side of each cat. But I'm not going to do that right now because I actually like the way this looks, and I don't think it's distracting that the cat has two tails. Anyway, so that's how I make my snowflakes, and it's really fun to try to fit whatever pictures you can into a snowflake, and it makes such a cool design. Hey, if you make some snowflakes of your own, I'd love to see your designs. Hit me up on Instagram at I'm Not Bored, I'm Creative. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I hope I was able to share with you something new for you to try out yourself. If you liked the video, don't forget to give a thumbs up and subscribe. Tell a friend. And don't be bored. be creative. I'll catch you next time. Bye.